24/7 Sports.
I know third down conversions have been a little bit of an issue so far this year. Small sample size. What are you seeing on third down conversions?
That's not what I was expecting you to ask, but we'll start with that one. I was ready. I had it right here. Dave Biddle. Who's the starting quarterback? Okay, gonna have to move that one down, Dave. Third down. We found ourselves this year so far in some third and twos and third and threes that we haven't converted on offense. And we got to get fixed. We got to do a better job of that. We're just been in some situations where we haven't executed very well. In those situations, we expect to. And third and long, third and extra long, different story. But third and medium, third and short, we got to keep drives going. Are we doing two questions? Yeah. So after reviewing the film, we've decided that Kyle's going to be the starter, and that make that distinction. We still plan on playing Devin, but we feel like Kyle has really stepped up to and deserves to be the starter. So we're going to go ahead and make that distinction.
All right, fourth row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic.
Ron, when you looked at the film, what stood out about Kyle for you to make that decision?
Yeah, just the overall consistency that I think he's been playing with. He made some nice throws. He kept the offense going. He came out of the gates playing efficient football, and that's what we're going to look for moving forward. But I would just say overall consistency.
Sometimes like the outside narrative is that like it's just Youngstown State, but when you have a quarterback who's making his third career start, seeing even just incremental progress,
right.
What does that do for his confidence?
Yeah, I think it's building. You can see, I think, regardless of the opponent, when you play in Ohio Stadium and you get your second start, you have to see how people are going to react. I thought he was much more poised in this game than the first one, and I think that's natural. So again, we'll see if we can build on that. But like you said, bigger challenges ahead.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
What will Devin's role be moving forward? Do you know? Do you want to get him out there, still schedule drives, or is it just whenever you get a chance?
Yeah, we'd like to. We'd like to get him out there and play. I think it depends on the opponent, depends on the strategy. There's a lot that'll come into play each week. I don't think it'll be something that we do the same thing every week, but we'll look at the opponent, we'll look at the situation, we'll look at the schematics of it all, and see where he fits.
How important is this week for Kyle to get out there and have one full game as the starter before going to South Bend?
I think it's important for everybody to play well this week. We have to keep upgrading and keep playing. Kyle's no different, but I think we all want to have a great week of work, and we all want to keep getting better. And now we're getting into game 3, so want to keep building and growing. I think it's a really important week for us.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Brad, when you reviewed the film, what did you like from the offensive line, and what still concerns you about those 5 things?
Yeah, I thought the protection overall was solid. I think they gave Kyle some good time. Got to keep building on that. I thought their effort and their finish was much better, and there was some good plays where I thought we came off the ball, but again, overall consistency is something that we're working on, and we got to get better. But there was some improvement there, but we expect on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 to execute, to get first downs, and there was a couple penalties in there as well, so got to clean those things up.
With Josh specifically, when he shows progress in blocking, but then has the penalties, how do you keep his mind right and make sure that he knows that, hey, you're still on track to do some things that we want you to do?
Yeah, it's constant communication, and that's on us as coaches to make sure that we're doing the right things that he can do, and allowing him to play free and not worry about making mistakes, but at the same time think clearly and be able to put his best foot forward and put his best play on the field. If we're doing too many things, that we got to cut back. If we're not doing enough to put him in a situation to be successful, then we have to look at that. And he has to just keep growing. But the more he plays, the better he's going to be. The talent's there.
Far right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, you've expressed some frustration several times now about the shortening of the game, the fewer the plays. That's not changing. If you had a chance to talk to your staff about what can you do differently to take advantage of this?
I think it's just on a week-to-week basis. I think we're in for a different challenge this week. This week you're going to see a team that throws the ball a lot more, plays faster, different challenge. So we'll just take it on a week-to-week basis. And listen, the bottom line is, if we get off the field or we convert on third downs, then we're moving more efficiently, and that's got to be the goal. But we do talk about what teams, goal is on each side of the ball and how they, plan to attack us. And so, we have to adjust and adapt based on who we're playing. And this week will be a different challenge.
You said also that it's guys deserve to play. That's got to be hard as a coach when guys don't get to play. And how hard is that? Can you describe talking to guys that don't even get in a game because mainly of this shortened game?
Yeah, I think they understand, but they want to get on the field. They came here to play, and we want to get them in the game. And the guys that deserve to. There's some guys that are still young that are working their way up, and the goal is that by the end of the season we have really good depth at all positions. And so that's where the growth during the season and the work that we have to put in. We're going to be a lot different team now than we are in a couple of weeks, and vice versa. So, I think that it's going to be important to try to get as many guys in the game as we can. But at the same time, we got to get the guys who are starters and the first string guys in there to get enough reps to continue to build.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, is there anything that can make an offensive line sort of more adept to zone schemes versus gap schemes or vice versa? And have you observed anything about your line relative to that in these first two games?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Some teams, like you said, some guys are built more for gap schemes. The size of the guys. Usually the bigger, stronger guys are a little bit more of the gap schemes. More athletic teams usually do a little bit more of the zone schemes. I think our guys can do both. I think they have the size and the athleticism to do both. And when you can change up what you're doing against the defensive line, where one time you're down blocking on them, the next time you're really zone reaching them and creating space, you're putting them in stress. But that's only if we're fitting them up right and we're hitting them right. I do think there was some good hits on Saturday. I do, but not nearly consistent enough.
It seemed like compared to the Indiana game, maybe you guys were a little more inside run focused against Youngstown State. Is that just a product of the opponent, or are you just trying to work through some stuff? Is that perhaps something you think you guys might do better? What was the thought process?
Once in a while, you got to just say, hey, we're gonna run the ball up the middle and make 4 yards and then do it again. That's part of growing a team and building a team. I thought, we did a nice job a couple times of getting the ball to the perimeter and creating some explosive plays, but ultimately, we also have to run the ball inside the tackles. So there's a little bit of both going on there, especially in a game early in the season.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, in the process of getting your starting quarterback, how much of an impact do you think that has had on third downs and offensive efficiency?
Yeah, the quarterback is a huge part of that. As we know, the quarterback really gets judged on third down in the red zone. Opportunities to throw the ball down the field, in play action, and to create explosives, decision making. But yeah, that's going to be a big part of it, and the timing and all that. But I think that there's been enough this year in that third and medium, 3, 4, 2 that we haven't converted on that we got to help them with.
Has that been more of an offensive line thing, or like what?
I don't think you can point to one thing, but that's what happens. When you have some inexperience there, it's one thing here, one thing there, and you add those up, then you're not as efficient as you'd like to be. So we've met as a group, we've talked about it, and we're going to try to give them a good plan and go after it again this week.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Going back to Rob's question about the clock and the rules, you obviously dealt with similar rules in the NFL. I know it's been quite a while since you were there, but how much can you draw back on your experiences of being an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, that to help?
Yeah, I just think it's a totally different game. Even I threw on a little bit of that Jets game last night and just watched it. It just you break the huddle at 15, and just the numbers aren't as big in that league as it is in college, and it's just very different that way. They play the game in the middle of the field. You really don't see any teams in the NFL go no huddle. Most of them are huddling for the most part, and so it's just different. There's just not as many plays in the NFL as there is in college. More games in the regular season, so just different. Yeah.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just more on the clock thing. As a play caller, when you have certain things that you're trying to get done on the drive, certain things you want to get done in a game. How have the clock rules maybe affected what you want to run on game day, and also Do you feel like when you call something, it has to be more maximized than maybe in the past?
Yeah, there's no question. It has to. We've talked about that as a team. It has to be more efficient. We got to come out of the gates and be efficient. I thought we did that. In the first quarter, we took the ball and we were. How does it affect a game like it was on Saturday? You're trying to play fast. We're trying to play fast. They're trying to play slow. That's just kind of the back and forth of it all. When we start getting into some different games down the road, that's not going to be the focus. The focus will be on winning the game. But we tried to get as many plays as we possibly could.
So your numbers, just your efficiency numbers, are maybe down from the last couple of years. It's only 2-game sample, so I understand that. But is the lack of efficiency just trying to adjust to the clock situation, or is that an execution problem?
No, I just think that there's less at bats right now, and it's also based on our opponents and the way that they played the game. It was a little bit probably like playing, some of the service academies. They're running the ball, and that's smart by them. It's good by them. It's just a different style of game. I think about maybe some of the games in the past that we were playing against no huddle teams that threw it, sort of like the team that we're going to play this week. So it'll be it'll be a different feel, we think, this week if things go as planned.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, and for 2 games, the defensive ends haven't had any sacks. Is there anything you're seeing on film of just why they're not being able to get to the quarterback right now?
Again, I think it's just going to be a different situation this week with Western Kentucky. They're going to throw the ball a lot more than our last 2 opponents. And they're going to play fast and try to spread us out. I think they do an excellent job. I mean, it's going to be a big challenge for our defensive line. It's going to be a challenge for our defense. They do a great job on defense and try to change up the look. So schematically, we'll get stressed out. So this is a good challenge for us, and I think we'll have a better feel about that coming out of this game.
How important do you think it is for the success of this defense going forward for those guys to be getting pressure on a consistent basis?
Yeah, everything starts up front on both sides of the ball, and one of the things that the defensive line and Larry takes a lot of pride in is getting the pressure on the quarterback. So there's going to be an opportunity this week doing that because of how much they throw the football, and they have a really good quarterback and a really good scheme. So it goes hand in hand with the coverage. If the coverage is really strong, then the quarterback has to throw the ball or hold the ball longer. If the coverage is loose, the ball comes out a little sooner. And it's the same thing with the D line. They have to, rush. If they're not getting to the quarterback, he can hold on to it longer. They have to work together. And so, again, different approach this week than what we've seen in the last couple.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, you just talked about some of the ways Western Kentucky is very impressive. Of course, you're not going to overlook a team, but with Notre Dame next week and what this Western team can do, how dangerous are they at this point in your season?
Well, I think, for us, we know, areas that we have to improve, and we have some guys that haven't played a whole bunch of football, and then we have, some other guys who, really are looking forward to take the next step in their development. So, I don't see it as that at all. We're not there right now. We got to keep building and growing and in all 3 phases. So I don't see it like that at all. We got a lot of respect for what they do, and watch the way they played Auburn last year, and they'll put stress on us. So we got an opportunity to go out and try to play our best game of the year, and that's really what matters. And then we'll go from there.
For those who don't know much about Western Kentucky, what about head coach Tyson Helton and what they do offensively just really impresses you?
Probably that they work off of each other. You can clearly see there's a plan on both sides of the ball on what they want to do. They want to throw it and score a whole bunch of points, and the defense kind of works with the offense the way that they're set up. So impressed with that. They have an identity.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Just to clarify, by naming Kyle the starter, how does that change the practice week? I assume Devin said they were still splitting reps pretty much 50-50 last week. How does that change, and how do you envision that helping Kyle be better?
Yeah, well, I think first off, it gives Kyle first off peace of mind that I think he realizes that he is the starter and he's earned that opportunity. Secondly, he will receive more of the reps. Devin will still get reps in practice. He'll get reps with the ones, but Kyle will get a little bit more than he has the last couple of weeks. And I think it's good for the team to have that distinction, to know that Kyle right now is the starter.
You said back in spring, and maybe it's even as early as February, when you were talking about this process, that you were looking for a special treat. What's Kyle McCord's special treat?
I mean, I think right now, it would be consistency overall. Just, we've talked about managing the game in terms of making routine plays routinely, not making bad plays worse. And then when you have an opportunity to go make that play on third down in the red zone, we got to go make it. And I think he's starting to learn how that works, how the game works, the preparation, and those type of things. And if we can keep building on that, then I think you'll see more and more play. Accuracy is another thing that he's missed a couple throws, but we see accuracy in him that has a chance to be special as well.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, when you realized or saw the stat sheet, when you saw Travion's carries, what did you think of that?
I would love to see him get more touches, yeah. But then again, when I looked at everybody, I wish they had more, yeah.
It's like we spent coming out of the first week like, well, Marvin's got to touch it more, and then week 2, now we're talking about Travion. I realize there are a lot of mouths to feed, and then the efficiency plays into this as well. How much, when you're building or designing a game plan, do you have it in your mind, X number of touches for somebody?
We try to do, let's look at the schematics of it all and figure out, here's a play that we think we run that fits against this defense. We put it up on the board, and then at the end we'll say, okay, how is this all shaken out? Is it heavy one side or another? And what we're not going to do is compromise what's best for the team just to make sure that everyone's touching the ball in a certain game. You saw in the first game, Julian and Cade got a bunch of touches. The next game, Marv got some more, and that's pretty normal of the way it goes. So, we try to be aware of it, but at the same time, we're not going to let it affect, how we're doing our day-to-day stuff.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, have you faced an offense that's at all comparable to Western Kentucky in terms of just the volume in which they throw over the last few years?
I felt like maybe a few years back against Indiana, they were throwing it a bunch, with Penix. I feel like they were throwing it a lot that year. You guys probably remember more than I do, but this is a little bit unique.
Is there anything you can draw on some of those, maybe like just some of Jeff Brom's teams? Is there anything you can draw on some of those teams you've faced before? That I know you don't typically face air raids a ton in the Big Ten, but is there anything you can draw on those games that can help here?
Yeah, and I think Jim has probably a little bit more of a background with it being, coming from the Big 12 for a couple years and seeing some of those styles of defense. And our styles of offense and going up against them. So he's got a pretty good, experience with those guys. So had some good conversations with him, and I think he's got a good plan.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
You think this is good prep for Notre Dame, just in terms of Hartman being an accomplished guy?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good challenge for our guys. I do. I think it's a good challenge for all of us. So looking forward to getting to work and getting, it's a 4:00 game for us. We got the night game the next week. So, we played the noon game this past week. So I think, you're hitting a couple different times. You're hitting a couple different schemes, different styles. We've had a game on the road. So it's been good. It's been a good start for us. But now, going into the third week, we got to ratchet it up even more.
Are you sounding a warning that, hey, we can't worry about next week today?
I just don't think that that's where we're at right now. I just think that we're one day at a time, growing every day. We know we want to play our best football at the end of the season, but we got to get better like now, and that's the message.
John, WBNS.
Schedule only gets tougher. What areas do you want to, have you circled this week that you got to be better at?
Well, the third down is something that just statistically jumps out, but it's all areas. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that we're a finished product in any one area. If you name off all the different areas in the team, we're trying to get better. We know that we're not where we need to be. But it's like we say, it's 1.0, 2.0. This has got to be 3.0. This has got to be our third version of ourselves, and it's got to improve because now you're on film for 2 weeks, and teams do a great job, coaches do a great job of scheming you up, and ultimately it comes down to playing really, really hard and competing, and running around and tackling and playing with great emotion.
Did you see the improvement you wanted to see in the running game from your O-line?
No. Pretty high standard. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's anything that I'm content with right now. We got a long way to go in all areas. We just got to keep growing and building, and I think that's a good approach to have. To stay hungry every week.
Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom, 11 row.
Ryan, you mentioned last night's NFL game. It's just another reminder that, we're one play away of playing for the quarterback. And how did Devin take the message and distinction with Kyle being the starter? And what do you need to see from his development to know that he's ready too?
Yeah, Devin's a great competitor. He wants it really bad. And, he knows that he's one play away, like you said. And he was great. But at the same time, he's got to get back to work this week and get better in the areas he needs to improve on, And we've talked about it. I think it's just the overall consistency for him. You can see it, but he hasn't played a lot, so we're going to try to get him more and more experience. And hopefully the next time he gets out there, he's a little bit more poised and has a feel for the game because the talent is certainly there.
Right in front of him, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
In the offseason, you talked about kind of stepping away and trying to have more of a hand in everything in this building. I guess almost 3 weeks into the season, how would you grade your ability to do that? Are you even still focused on doing that, or have you kind of reverted back to
No. I think that I'm definitely doing that better and more than I have in the past. But at the same time, we have young quarterbacks, and we got to continually work through the beginning stages of the season. So pushing hard in that area as well. Long days, but that's okay. That's part of the job. But I think certainly Quinn Temple has really helped with that a lot. He's taken a lot of those things off of my plate just in terms of the overall management of the building. And then, having, Brian and Justin and Joe Philbin and Todd Fitch, to try to help out what the offense has done. They've done a really good job of helping me in that area as well.
I know you said that it would be easy to do in the off season, but it gets kind of harder in the season. I guess does it change at all in these 3 weeks, or have you stayed pretty?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's changed a little bit, but at the same time, it's what you got to do to get the job done, and to win games, and a big part of that has been the way we do things on offense. So, going to stick with that, and the more and more the guys can take things and run, the more that I'll delegate.
Front row, Tim May on 3 and the Tim May Show.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. Ryan, when did the decision hit you that this was the time and the moment? Were you eating dinner, eating breakfast? Were you watching video? I'm talking about naming Kyle the bona fide dude.
I felt like it after the game. I just didn't feel like it was the right time until we have reviewed the film. But I just felt like after the game there was just an overall poise and consistency that just I think led us all to think that, okay, Kyle's the guy right now.
Yeah. And he seemed to throw the ball with more authority on Saturday. Do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah. He had some that came out with a lot more confidence for sure.
Yeah. And the sneak peek you've taken, at least, of WKU and their offense, Austin Reed in particular, the quarterback, what jumps out at you about him? The way he led the nation in passing last year, pretty close.
Yeah. His story is pretty interesting, where he came from, and just in terms of wasn't a highly recruited guy. He's had to earn everything he's had to get, and that's usually the right recipe for a really good quarterback. But he's accurate. He gets the ball out of his hand. You can tell he's very, very intelligent, has good vision. So really good challenge for our defense this week. I mean, they're going to come after us, and I think for the D-line, for the secondary, all of the above, schematically. Looking forward to getting going this week and seeing how it plays out on Saturday.
Deep center, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals podcast.
Ryan, there was a lot of focus all offseason about leadership, the committees, the finding guys to step up and be that guy. A lot of the guys that have been picked, Cade, Xavier, Tommy, these are guys that are quiet guys on the outside looking in. You guys obviously see practice, you see a lot more than we do. Is there any concern that there's not a vocal enough presence in the locker room or on the field? It seems like there's just a little bit of flatness at times, because that's just the way those guys are. It's not a knock, but is there something more you're looking for?
I think Tommy does have a pretty strong voice out there on the field. I agree with you. I think off the field he's a man of few words, but on the field, I mean, you can feel him. You can hear him. He has passion. He has intensity. I mean, he runs the defense out there. I think Mike Hall really, you feel him. You feel him on the field. I think Travion Henderson has done a really good job. I mean, you feel his intensity every day at practice. You feel him on the field. And so that's great. And I think the more, some of the other guys, the more that they continue to build confidence this season, you'll start to see that more and more. But it's there. I like the way Cade played in the first game. I like his leadership out there. I think sometimes with the offensive line, you're used to having maybe some older guys there. When you have 3 new starters there, you don't get as strong of leadership because they're still trying to figure it out. I think as they get more and more confident, you'll start to see those guys step up.
Feel that like any part of that is based on the early season schedule and maybe not having people looking ahead to something bigger. I mean, these games are hard to get up for everyone, but they are playing football at Ohio State, so you expect that they're out there with the right approach, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really felt that, but we'll keep pushing. We know that the challenges are coming, and it's only going to get harder and harder. The intensity is going to have to ratchet up for sure.
All right, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you mentioned Kyle's consistency, obviously, but how much of this decision was wanting to stick with one quarterback so you can maximize the fewer possessions and the fewer plays that you do have?
I don't know. I didn't really look into it that much, but yeah, I mean, the more we can get those guys out there and the more reps they take, I know the better they're going to get. And so, yeah, I mean, the more he can play, I see it. I saw the progression from week 1 to week 2, and hopefully we'll see the same progression in week 3.
Third row middle, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
I mean, you've been talking a lot about consistency. I guess, is that, the prevailing, message for the team this week right now? And how do you build consistency through, practice and just how do you keep working on that?
Well, there's a lot that comes with that. There's first off, there's just, overall, bringing it every day in terms of your physicality. You have the physical part of it, just the rest you have and being physical in practice. This is a violent collision sport. It's a combat sport. So, I mean, you got to physically bring it every day. And you have to be felt on the field. That's the first thing. The second thing is mentally, you have to prepare at a high level. It's like taking a test every day at practice. And, if you're not prepared mentally to go out in the field and, utilize the techniques and the tools or execute the scheme, then, you're not going to be consistent. And then part of that is like the soul and the spirit of it all. It's just the overall, like, I got to bring this thing because, we're competing at the highest level there is in all of sports right now. And so those are the 3 areas where you have to bring it every day. And, we want more consistency in that area. Now, that's not unique to this team, but that is a message.
Right behind him, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on something.
Sports Illustrated.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that thing.
That's hilarious.
Well, you didn't want me to say what I was saying.
We did. You almost, yeah. Well, that's because that was, yeah. Okay. Ryan, you were pretty straightforward with us after Indiana when we were talking to you about success. You said, hey, 250 on the ground, 300 through the air, want to score 50 points. Like, that's kind of how you define it. But I'm curious, like in a week like this, aside from that, how do you define success this week? Like, what things are you looking at saying, hey, if version 3.0 of us is going to be really good, this, that, whatever it might be, how do you define success this week?
Well, I think the first thing is you want everyone to grade out a champion. You've heard us talk about that. So, we look at effort, we look at execution, we look at different things. And if guys grade over 80%, then they're a champion. I mean, that's a tangible thing you can look at. And, if you have your starters or you have a good portion of your offense or defense grade out a champion, that's probably a pretty good day. If you don't, then that's that's not the direction we're trying to go in. So that's the job of the position coaches and the unit coaches and the leaders to make sure that their unit is grading out a champion. And we have to be hard and hold our standard of what is considered a champion and what isn't. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Now, we'll also look at the game and see, how do we do in third downs? How do we do in red zone? We go through all those situations in the team meeting on Sunday. Did we win those situations? We look at rushing yards. We look at explosive plays. We look at the red zone. We look at third down. We won most of those. We did not win third and medium. So that's an area we need to see an improvement in. But those really, if you say tangibly, what are the things? The champions, and then did we win the situations?
I asked you last week about one play in particular that sprung a mecca for a touchdown where it looked like 2 receivers blocked 3 guys to the ground. Are those the kinds of things that you guys show in film sessions that hopefully inspire the rest of the team when you see receivers doing stuff like that?
Yeah, and we show the good ones, and we show the ones that we need to improve on. And you know, it's part of our meeting on Sunday, and that was one of the ones that we're on. That was a huge play. They did a great job. Also, the one on Trayvion's touchdown, Emeka, and Marvin did a really nice job, 3 for 3 on the perimeter. You make those blocks, that's when good turns to great, and that was a huge emphasis going into last week. We thought that, you know, we needed to block the perimeter better. We did that. Got to keep improving. Bigger challenges are coming ahead, but there was definitely some tangible things that we saw that we showed the guys where if we make those blocks on the perimeter, we get the ball out there. That's a gain of 2 touchdowns. That if you don't make those blocks, they're gains of 5 and 6. So everyone has to do their part on offense.
What's the coaching point to Chip Traynor on that play? What, you know what I mean? The touchdown was called back for holding.
Again, I got feedback that that probably was not a hold. So I don't know what to say.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Got time for just a couple more. Front row, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
This is not my question, but the way you answered that, you're getting a lot of those, aren't you? After the fact corrections.
I mean, I guess it's part of the game. We'll worry about just getting our hands tighter and inside and doing a better job on third down.
My question. Kyle is a pretty flat line, even keel kind of guy. What was his reaction when you told him after all these months you won?
Kyle, like you said, is not someone that shows a ton of emotion all the time. He's excited, but he wasn't exactly jumping on the table when he asked me. I think that was more of a confirmation. I think he felt like the time was right, and I think he was right about that.
This morning?
This morning. Yeah.
And you mentioned peace of mind for him. How much is peace of mind for you that you don't have to think about this anymore? We've got our guy. We've got West Kentucky, which will be a challenge. We've got Notre Dame in the Big Ten. We needed to have this done by now.
Yeah, I guess it's one less thing. Still got a lot of other things to worry about, but yeah, I mean, I think it's played itself out. I think if we sat here 2 weeks ago, we said, we'll get a chance in 2 weeks to at least have 2 games to look at and see where it's at, and I think that's kind of how it went. You never know how it's going to go, right? It could go a million different ways. You even look at how the game went last night. I mean, unbelievable. But so you don't know. You don't have a crystal ball. But here we are. I think it's played out the way. And then also there's also practice, and we've seen enough in practice to lead us to believe that this is the right thing to do.
And final question, second row, Doug Lameries, Kings of Columbus.
Ryan, I guess Western Kentucky's maybe not pure air raid anymore, but it's on the tree, I guess, right?
Sure.
Have you studied air raid much, dabbled in it? Have you ever thought of instituting it more into what you do, or how much have you? What do you think of that philosophy?
It's an identity. It is. There's pluses and minuses to everything, and they do a great job of creating space and getting the ball out of their hand quickly, and wide receiver screens and the throws off of them, and they're creative about some of their trick things that they do, and so we got to be on our game. They're going to challenge us. But yeah, we look at everybody. I mean, I probably look at too many people, but always looking for great ideas of how teams attack others. But ultimately, you have to get back to what your identity is, and so there's certain things that are trends in different leagues, and certainly in the Big Ten, there's things that in teams and weather and just different things you have to consider.
I know offensively you want to be efficient and explosive, right?
Yes.
That's a given. But that slider, right? Is it right in the middle all the time? We want to be efficient and explosive, or philosophically, is there a way that you lean? Or does that change with your quarterback, with your players, with your team?
In the game, yeah. I think all those things you have to consider for sure. Every opponent's different, every situation's different. There's a lot of things to consider, and those are the decisions you try to do the best you can to put your team in the best situation, ultimately to reach your goals. Sometimes it may not be the best thing at the time or seem that way, but you try to do everything you can, and it's our job as coaches to do that. And sometimes you want to see how certain guys are responding. Sometimes you want to see. Give somebody an opportunity to prove in a game that they can or they can't. sometimes, you have to be a little bit stubborn in certain areas to find out. And sometimes it's exciting, sometimes disappointing. But that's part of building a team and building an offense and figuring out what you can and can't do. Because like we said, going into week 1 and week 2, you make assumptions. And some assumptions are proven to be true, other assumptions are proven to be wrong, and then you keep building from there.